not everything is going to be a home run. And the important thing is after you make a decision is being willing and humble to tact and change your direction.
Hey there, and welcome to Under the Roof, the official podcast of Baker Roofing Company. I'm Todd Kavanaugh.
And I'm Matt Elban, and we're here to connect the dots between field and office, leadership and crew, values and action.
In each episode, we dive into the stories, lessons, and updates that matter to our team.
From safety and career growth to company milestones and good old-fashioned storytelling, it's all about living out what makes Baker, Baker. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Under the Roof, the podcast where we look at what's really under the roof of one of the oldest and most experienced roofing contractors in the industry. We're talking strategy, partnerships, innovation, history, and the people who make it all work. At the end of the day, this is about what makes Baker and the roofing industry tick. And there's a lot more under there than most people realize.
Yeah, so today's guest is a first for us in a couple ways. Prudent Growth has been a Baker partner for a long time now. And a couple months ago, I was actually talking to Jerry, who's joining us, standing around that event, and he started telling me about something new that his team has built. After about 2 minutes into that conversation, I took a mental note and said in my head, this probably needs to be an episode on Under the Roof. So Jerry Hahn is Chief Operations Officer of Prudent Growth. And Jerry, I think I saw on your signature, you're President of Prudent Growth Operations, which is maybe you're going to talk to us about today. They're a private equity real estate firm out of Chapel Hill with properties across 14 states. Jerry, welcome to Under the Roof.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this.
So Jerry, the first question I get to ask this of all of our guests. Even if it's been a repeat guest, I ask them again and another answer. So hopefully it's not hard for you considering what you have behind you there with a nice bookshelf, but what's the last book you read and what did you take away from it?
I read a lot of fiction and fantasy, but I think one of the last books I read that I took a lot away from was Redeeming Your Time by Jordan Rayner. It's kind of a look at time management from a biblical perspective and just some good guidelines of how you should manage your time, treat others, and make sure that you're hitting all of your commitments and tracking everything that you have to do. So I think that was probably the last book I read that was really business related.
I love that. It dovetails nicely into that concept of redeeming the time and then maintaining commitments, which is a huge part of business. It's a huge part about how we built ours, and I'm sure it's a huge part about how you guys have built yours. And so I'm sure we'll kind of probably dive into that and probably work our way back to that topic throughout this time. So thanks.
Jerry, I think that is actually on my list somewhere too. I was like, that's right. That's one of those books. It's maybe like at number 8 or something, but somebody has recommended to me shortly after another great book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer that talks about time management in a much better way.
Yeah, and I read that one as well. That's a great book.
Awesome. Well, Jerry, let's rewind all the way back because no kid really says, when I grow up, I want to manage commercial real estate in 14 states or more. You were an engineer, and engineers build things like rockets and bridges and cool stuff. So walk us back what the series of decisions or accidents that ended you up here.
So I graduated from West Point with a mechanical engineering degree. And I knew when I graduated that I did not want to go into mechanical engineering and be a designer. I loved mechanical engineering because of the problem solving and the methodology of how to approach and solve problems. And so when I got out of the military, I started working for DuPont as a process engineer. And I have 3 siblings, Tom, who's the founder of Prudent Growth, and then my younger sister, Nancy, and brother, Bob. And we ended up forming a company called H4 Enterprises, where we began to purchase rental properties in Wilmington, Delaware. And that just evolved into a full-time job for me as property manager and then dealing with renovations or work that had to be done. And it was really a lot of fun. So I formed a general contracting company in Philadelphia this was mainly residential and focused on residential renovations and property management. And then in 2019, my son graduated from University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and we were down staying with Tom. And we just started talking. He had started Prudent Growth in 2015 and had grown it to, I forget how many properties, but had decided that he wanted to bring operations in-house because he thought that being an owner-operator would give them better results than using third-party property management. So he talked with me, and one thing led to another, and ended up moving down and joining the firm with the focus of building out the operations side of Prudent Growth. Yeah, and we just purchased some new properties this week, one in Wichita, Kansas. So we're up to 16 states now.
16 states and growing. I love to hear that. So you said mechanical engineer. Ironically, my father is a mechanical engineer by trade, ended up being a professor for the majority of his life, worked in the Navy as a contractor for a little while as well. But what's the Delaware connection? Because my dad went to University of Delaware. He got his PhD there and his master's at University of Maryland, but his undergrad was at Delaware as well. And so I was curious.
Yeah, so the Delaware connection, I grew up in Newark, Delaware, and my parents both went to University of Delaware. And I started with DuPont down in South Carolina, and then DuPont's headquarters is in Wilmington, Delaware. So I ended up being transferred up to Wilmington, Delaware. And then when I left DuPont, I was right there in Wilmington. So that's why we started and worked in Wilmington.
All right, cool. So you've been an engineer, a general contractor, a maintenance company owner, a real estate investor, a real estate professional. When you look at property management today, what is the combination of those backgrounds specifically let you see that maybe some others miss?
I think one of the characteristics of Prudent Growth is we are a very curious firm. We are always looking at what are we doing and how can we do it better, faster, and cheaper. And that goes back to the whole problem solving and kind of thinking more technological on how to approach your routine day-to-day tasks. One of the things when I was in DuPont, there used to be a big quality initiative called Six Sigma. And I was trained with Six Sigma as their terminology was a black belt. And it's just looking at systems and what are the routine systems you do on a daily basis? What's your error rate? And how can you do it better with better results that are repeatable? So I think that that's what I really enjoy about property management and with Prudent, because we're really using a lot of the new AI that's coming out. We're heavily invested in Perplexity and Claude, and we've pretty much just automated our delinquency process where Tom and I are writing Python scripts and loading into GitHub, and then triggers in our maintenance platform, which we use ClickUp. It's also our task management, where it's running the scripts and doing everything more and more automated and repeatable with less errors. And I think that that's really what I see property management moving towards, is taking advantage of all the new applications, new systems that we have access to, and finding ways to improve the deliverables that we give to people.
Joe, that's really interesting. I remember having a conversation about AI a couple months ago with yourself and several others at that event. And I'm curious, I'm a little bit involved in AI initiatives here at Baker. There's multiple schools of thought in terms of what is going to be with people, who is going to be the people driver of change within the organization. Do we bring on a high-level AI scientist, or do we grow that from within and empower people internally to utilize these tools? I'm curious, who is the driver for some of those workflow innovations that you guys have been using with Perplexity and ClickUp and Claude? Is that something that your engineering background has just really naturally flowed into? Or I'm curious as to how you guys approach that.
Yeah, I think so. We've got several drivers. Tom is really into pushing and using AI. So he's looking at it firm-wide and looking at how can we implement AI across the board to speed things up. And he started telling me that meetings are like a crone job that we need to get rid of. So we need to get all of our data into one system that's easily searchable. And then you can just go to that system and ask a question instead of emailing somebody and asking them, well, what's the status of this roof replacement at this property? We should be able to just go in and just ask our system and it'll tell us. So we don't have to interfere with other people's workday. And then we have other people. Our acquisitions team has developed a really great prompt for reviewing leases, for when we're looking at buying a property that we run the lease through. And it's got, I think, 60 or 65 different prompts and questions that it asks to give us a really good idea of each of the leases. And the finance team has been using it. Each of our teams has been given initiatives that they're leading on their own.
That's really cool. Well, I could probably camp out on AI for the rest of the conversation, but I won't do that to listeners that maybe aren't as interested in that. So I kind of want to bring it back. And it sounds like you guys are in your 11th, maybe going on 12th year. I guess Tom started it back in 2015, you had said. But it sounds like you're still entrepreneurs. Like, I guess that doesn't really change. And you were an entrepreneur yourself. What's one of those hard lessons as business leaders, as an entrepreneur specifically, that you had to learn the hard way, that's maybe kind of formed who you are or how you approach business?
It's a good question. I think for me personally, that not everything is going to be a home run. And the important thing is, after you make a decision, if it's the wrong decision, is being willing and humble to tact and change your direction and realize, okay, this is not working. We need to go from here over to here. And I think that some people have a difficult time doing that. So I think for me, it's keeping a very open mind and just seeking counsel and advice from others that are in the same profession or the same time of life that you are, and just really trying to look and learn from your mistakes.
It's an interesting framework there of being willing to admit when you're wrong or a wrong decision was made maybe, and the humility it takes to do that, especially when it affected maybe more than just you, right? Your team in some way. And now you got to admit it to your team. That's a whole nother level of leadership, of coming clean and saying, hey guys, I made the wrong choice. It's me. We're going to adjust it, pivot, go do this now, and then rally those people together. But it's easy to rally them together when you've admitted that you were wrong and you didn't hide behind it or blame it on somebody else, right?
Right. And you were talking about books at the beginning of this podcast, and another great book that I've actually had our operations team read. And when new people come in, I encourage them to read it, called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. It's a great book on taking ownership. And yeah, you're right. I mean, there's nothing worse than a leader throwing somebody else under the bus and deflecting blame and not just taking ownership for a mistake that they make.
That is a good book. I have read that one, probably one I should reread. Some books are worth multiple takes or out of them. So for listeners who maybe don't know Prudent Growth, give us the picture. What does the company do? What kind of properties do you guys have in your portfolio? And what does prudent mean in practice? Is that just a personality description of the leadership team, or is it an investment philosophy for you guys?
So Prudent Growth is a real estate investing company. And our main goal is to deliver the results that our investors are expecting to see. So everything that we do is kind of focused on three things. The first is, does this help us buy and sell properties? Does this help us manage properties? And does this help us to meet investor expectations? So that's kind of the lens in which we look at and make decisions as we're confronted with things. Prudent Growth mainly, so we've had two funds, and we've launched Prudent Growth Fund 3. And our goal was around $50-ish million, which we would then use to purchase properties. Our sweet spot for properties are the $3 to $15 million range, strip centers with small box tenants, maybe 5 to 15 tenants. We're trying to shy away from some of the bigger box type tenants. We really like those strong neighborhood, residential type strip centers. Prudent is the investment philosophy itself. When Tom formed the company, in Proverbs, it talks about being a prudent person, a wise person, and not trying to look for a get-rich-quick scheme or other things like that. It's being very thoughtful and deliberate of what you do, and over time, you'll bear the fruits of those investments. So our philosophy is we're not rushing out trying to buy every single piece of property we can. We've got very strict guidelines for acquisitions. And I think David, who runs acquisitions, said that we get over 3,000 emails a month, give or take, of potential deals. And we really, really narrow it down to a very few select that meet our criteria. We don't try to jump out of our comfort zone just because something looks good or flashy. We are very deliberate in our process, and then very deliberate in our management, tech and process, and then disposition process.
It sounds like you guys have it ironed down really smooth with how that works. It's interesting. 3,000 a month of potential, I guess, deals. That's a lot. So tremendous success on y'all's part for sure.
Thank you.
Jerry, I want to dig into something a little bit that you alluded to in the story of Prudent Growth. It sounds like the origin of this part of it was your son was graduating, you're staying with your brother Tom. He made a decision. And I think from our experience, a lot of firms just decide to hire a property management firm to manage their properties for them. Prudent Growth, you said, made the decision. Tom wanted to build something on their own within the company to do it. And I think that formed Prudent Growth Operations. Walk us through why you guys decided to make that call. Was there something that wasn't working for the conventional model, or something you just saw from a different angle?
I think for us, and I can only speak for us, one of the greatest assets we have are our tenants. And the tenants, and we take our relationship with that tenant very, very seriously. And it's our mission in operations to, especially for the mom and pops that are non-national tenants, this is their life savings. This is how they support their families. This is how they pay their bills. Our goal is to work with them, develop a relationship with them where we come alongside them and we, assist them. So if they get an unexpected expense, like they have to buy a new HVAC unit, or there's an unexpected bill that they have, or things like that, we can work with them and take care of their immediate need by working out a deal with them, maybe on a lease amendment where they get what they need immediately, and maybe we add some lease term or a small modest rent bump or something like that. And you can't have that relationship with a third-party property manager, because the third property management company is between the owner and the tenants, and the owner and the maintenance of the property. And it's difficult for the owner to get a clear picture of their tenants. How are the tenants doing? Monthly dialogues with their tenants. How's the maintenance of the property going? Annual roof inspections. Just making sure that we are being good stewards of the properties that we manage. And I think that is the number one reason why the decision was made to bring operations in-house, because we directly manage over 70 properties. We've got 84 properties in the portfolio. Some of them are third-party managed residential properties or joint ventures. But I think that we get a better understanding and overall understand the condition of the property so much better by managing them ourselves.
You certainly have access to the information a little quicker. I mean, that's got to be an advantage. So you guys are built kind of broad. When you brought it in-house, you didn't have a framework or a structure to do this. So building that management company from, I'll say, scratch, while you're also growing your portfolio side of the business, to be perfectly honest, it sounds like you changed tires while the car was still moving, which is a little bit terrifying. So what surprised you most in that? Or what would you do differently if you had a chance to start over, go back 10 years? All right, we're going to now start this way with what we've learned in the last 10 years. What would you do different?
I mean, looking back, it is just like changing the tire of a car while it's still rolling, because you've got new properties we're buying. We would add team members as we grow. So, I mean, looking back, if money was not an issue, having a team in place would have been good that was trained versus learning on the fly. But I don't know if we would have known what to train them if we weren't learning on the fly. And developing what's the prudent way, how are we going to manage these properties, not necessarily how the industry is doing it or comparing ourselves to other third-party managers. But again, it would just kind of rotate back to how can we manage the property better and then get more value for our investors and buy and sell. And I think that we just started looking at each thing we were doing. We ended up getting a property management platform, Appfolio, that we manage. I think looking back, maybe that would be a decision, because Appfolio is more residential focused than commercial focused. So that has created some pain points for us throughout the years of trying to force our portfolio into Appfolio. But to make a change from that now, it wouldn't be worth it, because we've kind of worked around it. But I think that making sure we had the right systems in place as we learned it, we did make some decisions flying by the seat of our pants that looking back were probably not the right decisions, but we made it through.
Yeah, but going back to your point a few minutes ago, being willing to own those decisions when hey, we probably made that one wrong. We need to pivot and adjust. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of freedom that comes when you have the humility to admit when you did something wrong there, because people will still follow you when you now have admitted that, work through it, and now we got a clear plan to move forward. You've done that. Every successful business has probably done that as well. So that's a great answer. I love that.
And I think that's one of those secrets to running a really good service business too, is admitting mistakes builds trust, and transparency builds trust. And yeah, I really appreciate that. Jerry, I want to talk a little bit about, you've mentioned your tenants over and over again and the importance that they have in the framework of prudent growth. And your portfolio is full of, kind of as you mentioned, whether it's neighborhood retail, barbershops, restaurants, just local businesses where the owner's livelihood, as you mentioned, really depends on the lights staying on, roof staying dry, and all the other systems working. Can you tell us about one of these tenants that you'll never forget, one that sticks out in your mind in the 16 states? It could be a strange maintenance request, or it could just be one tenant that you're like, man, this has just always been one that I remember constantly.
I remember one tenant we had down in South Carolina that we were buying a property and he was doing his tenant upfit to open up a pizza place. And we just really hit it off well. And I met him when I was down visiting a couple times, and then went down for his soft opening to give him some support and check it out. And I remember that it was funny because his pizza was made from Italian flour, which did not quite have the gluten issues that American pizza has. So I wanted to bring one home for my wife, and he wouldn't sell it to me. He's like, no, I'm not going to let her first impression of my pizza be cold pizza. You guys have to reheat. You have to bring it down. So I'm like, okay. But no, I really enjoyed working with him and going through his whole startup and his business. And there was a lot of lessons learned. Unfortunately, he ended up not making it because of some business decisions that he made in dealing with the contractor for his build out and some issues with the build out. But we came alongside him and helped him out as best we could while he was transitioning out of the business and helping find a replacement tenant. But those are the type of things. We also have a theater that focuses on running their theater for any child to participate in. And they focus on kids with disabilities and things like that. And it's very big on run by donations and the community helping them out. And we've come alongside of them and become a partner with them and restructured their lease several times and provide a construction experience and help them while they move towards the grand opening. And those are the type of things I like, is working with tenants to help solve their problems and getting them. It may not always be where they wanted to end up, but helping them to figure out what's best for themselves and their business and best for the growth.
So you've used a term that I'm very fond of, and that term's community. You've used it several times, and you talk about the neighborhood type centers that you want to buy without the giant anchor tenant. That's not more of a neighborhood place, right? And then now you're talking about the community rallying around this specific tenant where kids with disabilities come into these plays and participating in those and all of that stuff. I think I saw that Prudent Growth has a community arm, Prudent Growth Cares. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do. Take a minute and kind of share that side of your business with the listeners.
We have a group called Prudent Growth Cares, and our whole goal is to give back to the communities that we're involved with. There's a public school that is in Durham, North Carolina, the school is probably about 10, 15 minutes from our corporate headquarters, called C.C. Spalding, that we've developed a relationship with. We go to meetings there for volunteers. We purchase for their back to school. We'll purchase backpacks for all the kids and hand those out at the back to school night. They've got a program called Real Men Reads, where a group of us will go over and spend time in the classroom reading to the kids. And we're very involved with them. We're very involved with another ministry in Durham called Durham Rescue Mission, where we work with them. We help out in their events. And that's a ministry to people that are homeless and working on different addictions that they may have.
It's interesting you bring that one up. My wife and my kids, my wife works at a Christian school in Richmond, Virginia. My kids have all gone there. I've been really involved with that school. And they, at times, have done work down at the Durham Rescue Mission, taken some senior trips down there over the years and been involved with them. So interesting you brought that one up.
Well, that's great. And then we do stuff in Charlotte because we did have an office in Charlotte. Then we ended up deciding that we didn't need an office, but we have folks in Charlotte. So there's a couple ministries in Charlotte we work with. And then we like to do things in the communities that we'll do trunk or treats. We'll help organize those for our retail centers. We'll participate if a tenant has something where we've had tenants reach out where they're sponsoring a backpack drive or school supplies or stuff that we'll make donations to and help advertise what they're working on. But we try to have a pretty full calendar for opportunities to give back.
Well, Jerry, we're finally at the question that I wanted to ask that kind of started this whole conversation and me wanting to get you on the podcast. So at this event that we were at, you told me you're taking everything that Prudent Growth has learned in managing its own portfolio and now offering it as a service to other property owners. So why don't you tell everybody kind of what you told me, what is it, and what convinced you that this model was ready to extend beyond your own building?
So we just recently launched a new business called Cornerstone Commercial LLC. It's run by Alexis Pattison. She is our chief strategy officer for Prudent Growth. And we just hired a really strong leasing agent named Ann Smith. And what we're doing is, so we're taking what we've learned and the investments we've made at Prudent Growth and putting that into Cornerstone. We have developed technologies. We've got a scalable systems. We've got a firm that has an acquisitions team. We've got a general counsel and a legal team and communications team. So we've got a lot of assets that we can share with other property owners. And I think our goal is that by scaling, and it's very little incremental cost for us to add properties because we've got the teams, we've got the processes, we've got the technology. So we believe that we can leverage this and come into the market and offer a different perspective at a lower cost point for owners than other smaller third-party property managers, mainly because of our scale and size and the investments we've made in the systems and the technologies. It's kind of like we're looking at Baker roofing quotes for a property right now, and we're looking at doing it in different sections. And the larger the section you re-roof, the lower dollars per square foot you're going to pay. So the bigger you are, the incremental cost of managing another 2 or 3 properties with 30 tenants is lower because you keep lowering the cost as you scale and you bring more people in. So I think that that's really one of the main drivers. And we also have a great team. We've got an experienced team we're divided up. We've got a leasing team, we've got a facilities and maintenance team, and we have a finance team. So we've got capacity. So I think that we can come in with the learnings we've had as an owner. We can meet with owners and understand we've got different strategies for different properties, hold strategies, or what strategy do you want with this property? Do you want to cash flow? Do you want to hold? Do you want to increase the value of the property? And we can help an owner get there with a perspective of being a fellow owner.
It feels like the natural evolution. You started as a portfolio management company of your own buildings, and then you added operations in-house, and now you're taking that in-house operations and extending it outside.
So my question kind of dovetails right off of that, and that, like, who's the right fit for this? Is it specific markets? Are you guys looking for people in certain regions of the U.S. specifically? Are you open to anywhere? Give a little bit of a pitch for that.
Right now, we're focused on North and South Carolina and Georgia. And the reason for that is that as a owner-operator, there's different licensing requirements and insurance requirements and everything else that we need to have because we have an ownership stake in their properties. When we go out as a third party, then we need to have a broker in charge, and we need to be licensed as a broker in each of the states. So we're slowly building that out as we have a need. But I think right now our main focus is the Carolinas and Georgia, because we know that we can quickly get to any property in that geography and want to make sure that we provide the best service to the owners that we represent. We've got 4 properties under management now, and we've had some very productive meetings with other owners and leasing opportunities. And I think we're very close to wrapping up a deal to be a representative for a national and leasing in a geographical area within the Carolinas that will be a great springboard for us. So we're working hard on getting the word out.
So, Jerry, a lot of our listeners are on the other side of this conversation. They might be a facility manager, maybe a portfolio director, an owner evaluating management partners, even. What separates a management firm that protects an asset from one that just collects the fee? And maybe what questions should they be asking of their current management partners?
So I think in that situation, looking at a property, some of the things that we always ask and what we ask third-party managers for our residential properties, we manage one in-house residential property, apartment community, but the other ones are third-party. We really like to see reports, and we really like to work alongside those managers. I think there's always a tendency that the less transparency there is, the more questions that go unanswered. So we really like transparency. We really like filling in the blanks and meeting with and understanding, maybe going overboard of, like how many tenants are you talking to? What's going on? What's your strategy for leasing the vacancies? And then really trying to make sure, and going back to the whole owner perspective, if a tenant is responsible for something, let's say an HVAC and it breaks, we don't want a property manager that just says, well, I'm sorry, the lease says you have to do it. And if you can't do it, then we're going to have to move on and find a different tenant. Like, we're not checking the box. And we want a property manager and firm that's going to think outside of the box and say, I know what the lease says, but what's the best outcome for this property? The best outcome for the property is the tenant stays, the air conditioner gets fixed, and you add several years to the lease. And it adds value to the property that way. True partnership. So I think that that's one of the things I would look at is what's the philosophy of the management company and what's their end goal?
That's totally fair. I like that.
So I've got to throw at least one roofing question in here since it is under the roof. So let's talk about the roof. And in your capital planning, I'm curious, where does the roof sit? How do you think about maintenance versus waiting for something to fail? How does Prudent Growth think about the roof?
That's a good question. So several years ago, we worked with Baker Roofing, and I came to understand from Tyler Poole that we had the Chick-fil-A annual maintenance program that they pitched us, which we love. We believe that the more proactive a property manager can be, whether it's the roof, HVAC maintenance, or anything, the cheaper your actual maintenance cost will be long-term. And you can extend the life of the roof, which delays a significant capital investment. So we firmly believe, and I highly recommend, we have, I think, a robust annual maintenance program on all of our roofs across the portfolio. We try to do it in like March so that we go out and have all the roofs inspected. We receive estimates on immediate repairs that should be done, and we try to get those all completed by the May timeframe before the heavier rains or potential hurricanes or water events. So I think that's the more proactive you are with your roof maintenance, that it just saves so much headaches for the tenants. And you're still always going to get leaks on a flat roof, but if you can really cut them down, I think that's a win-win for everybody.
That's true for any system like that has to perform a function, whether it's HVAC or it's reductionist, but the motor on your car, right? It's cheaper to replace the oil at 5,000 miles than to replace the engine at 20.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of the annual or development relationship like that with a vendor is they go above and beyond what a normal person would do in an emergency. So if you have a good relationship with somebody like Baker or another trade, they will go out and they'll take an extra look at your property because they know that you care and you're developing that relationship. So I know that we're getting a good inspection, that if I actually have a roof emergency, that will be hopefully near the top and getting taken care of. And it's better than just being reactionary all the time.
Speaking of hiring trades, lots of trades. I'm sure over your multiple years and 16 states now of operating in, you guys and yourself have hired a lot of contractors. What drives you crazy about contractors? And you can be honest. Todd and I can take it. It's okay. We probably have heard what you're going to say already at some point from others. So feel free to let loose. But what drives you crazy about contractors?
As a former contractor, I know things are going to go wrong. I know that there's things that will happen that are outside of the contractor's control. And projects get delayed, inspections won't pass for various reasons. That's all. I know that happens. The thing that drives me up the wall is the lack of communication. I always tell my team, bad news doesn't get better over time. And if something is going on, you can tell me right away, or you can wait and miss 3 or 4 phone calls from our team over 3 days before you finally get back and just say, oh yeah, this happened. The contractors that are upfront and communicate and allow us to know, hey, something happened and HVAC didn't get delivered on time, or I was supposed to cut off a section of the roof and there was rain in the forecast for 2 days, so I didn't do it. Then we can communicate back to our tenants and everybody's in the loop and everybody knows what's going on. So the thing that drives me up the wall and will cause us to stop using somebody the fastest is the lack of communication.
You heard it here. Transparent communication is crucial to developing trusted partnerships.
Well, Jerry, we're kind of at the end here, and I love thinking back on some of the earlier things that you said, being curious as an organization. That's one of our fundamentals here at Baker Roofing Company, is to always be curious. And one of the things I've noticed too, at least in my own experience, hallmarks of good organizations are ones that aren't afraid to swing and miss or to fail and make that kind of okay within the culture. Is that something that is true at Prudent Growth, that you're okay to take a risk and try something and learn from it? You said that at the beginning, right?
Absolutely. You miss every shot you don't take. I mean, I know that one thing we looked at was, and this was a while back, improving our bill paying system. And we did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of people, and our finance team led an initiative to move us over to a bill payer that we thought was going to really help us. And it ended up not. It was a decision where, I mean, I think that they made the right decision. I'm glad that they went for it. But looking back, it was something that did not give us the expected returns or ease of processing bill payments that we had expected. And they quickly pivoted back. And after about 2 months, they're just like, this is not working. We just need to switch. And I mean, we were willing to go out and try things. And if they don't work, we'll quickly pivot. We won't continue to try to make something work that doesn't work. We just don't have the capital as far as time and people to do that. So we like to try things, like I said, and then pivot if we need to.
Well, that's really cool, Jerry. Matt opened this with, what are you reading? I always have a little tradition on my end too, where I like to ask the question of, what are you listening to? Like, what's on heavy rotation, whether it's music or a podcast or an audiobook. Is there something that you're listening to right now that helps you wind down from the day?
I really enjoy podcast All In. It's really good. It's a group of guys that get together once a week and talk about AI initiatives and technology stuff.
I'll have to listen to that one.
Yeah, I'm writing these down. I take notes while we do these, and I spend the next couple of weeks digging into the stuff that was talked about. So it's fantastic.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much. I know you've known Matt for some time. And for me, this conversation kind of started at that event. And I'm glad that we got to flesh that out a little bit more here. So really, congratulations on the new venture. That's super exciting. And of course, we're rooting for you over here at Baker.
Yeah, we wish you well, for sure.
Same. Thank you all very much. We love working with you guys.
Thank you. So for everyone listening, whether you own one building, maybe you own 100 buildings, today was a look at what it means when the people managing those properties think like the people who own them. That's a standard that is worth holding on to. It's worth everybody holding on to, including us. And so thanks for that.
And like always, here at Baker, we shall do good work at a profit if we can, at a loss if we must, but always good work. Thanks for being under the roof with us. That wraps up this episode of Under the Roof. Thanks for joining us and being part of the Baker Roofing family.
If you liked what you heard, share it with your crew. Hit the follow button and keep the conversation going wherever you work.
We're here to keep you informed, inspired, and included, because the more connected we are, the better we work together.
And as always, we'll leave you with this. We shall do good work, at a profit if we can, at a loss if we must, but always good work. See you next time.